Thanks for tuning in to the CDA Institute's Expert Series. For this installment, we spoke with Troy Bouffard, Director of the Center for Arctic Security and Resilience at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In this excerpt, we discuss some of our shortcomings when it comes to understanding Russian strategy in the Arctic, whether or not our analysis is potentially biased, as well as what China has learned from the war in Ukraine, and how the war is influencing the relationship between China and Russia. You can read the full transcript of this discussion on our website at cdainstitute.ca. In an interview conducted with the CDAI, Matthew Bouleg of Chatham House said we failed to perceive aspects of Russia's thinking in the Arctic, which create space for miscalculation. What do you think of this assessment? And does the West need to think more about Russia's perspective, and is our analysis potentially biased?
Russia's position on the Arctic is that it is the largest and most important actor and the most dominant. Therefore, anything that has to do with the Arctic region, you have to include Russia, and it must be an important actor. That is their foundational position on all things Arctic. And this is only going to increase in importance too of understanding that, right? It's not just a matter of like, whatever, you're big, doesn't matter. We got more friends. At the end of the day, it's like if we don't think authentically from their perspective and how they might perceive options and their requirements, we're gonna miss out on a lot. We already are. We tend to understand Russia from basically a Western bubble, where all of our analysis and our some of our best material is coming only from Western sources, like myself and others, right? If you're only reading certain sources of information, you might get yourself sort of in the bind that way. And I try to pay particular attention. And first, I'm going to cover all the Russian primary sources on a topic before I dive into others. Right, so I'm going to at least have a balance. If I'm talking about something Russia, I'm going to get all my primary sources from Russia and start there. And then try to expand on it from experts like Matthew and others who do a really good job at this. There's not many. And part of the problem is we've skipped a generation in the West in terms of we used to understand our adversary, the Soviet Union, very well because we studied them. We studied the language, we paid attention, and we did it right. And it was a bit different then, of course, but we did take it seriously, and we did genuine studies along those lines. Soviet Union ends, and we have now we've had more than an entire generation of people now who are leaders in part of the professional workforce who don't know anything about that. Nothing. They've never known a need and what it's like to really have to know your adversaries. So they just don't know, right? But we do have some of us old guys still floating around going, hey, remember when we did this and we did it right? Trying to get us back to there, and it's going well. And we can do that because there's old guys like us around. However, and we've got a lot of experience in that regard. In terms of China, we don't. And this is going to be a huge problem. So yeah, our biases get us. And it's largely because we've had a whole generation now on this planet in the West who are part of the professional workforce and this world of analysis and decision making and making recommendations, who doesn't understand that. And we have really got to get back to that first and foremost, to have a very deliberate effort into understanding our adversaries properly. Because, well, we've seen what happens when we don't. Right? We're so far out. I mean, the number of people that couldn't predict and didn't predict Crimea was astonishing. When it comes to the Arctic, in Russia in general being in a much more weakened state, um, we can fully expect that China is rethinking its strategy in terms of literally how to take best advantage of this situation. And after last week's SCO summit in Central Asia, um, where Putin was systematically humiliated, uh, I'm trying to think who is left still, but as far as I can tell, he has no meaningful geopolitically meaningful friends left on this planet. And we saw a signal from Xi Jinping that he's ready to go claim the dominant position and start taking advantage of Russia and this European retreat from buying Russian Arctic energy. We can fully expect other actors, especially China, to take advantage of the situation, offer to buy this stuff, but at a severely reduced rate under China's conditions. And basically, they're going to be in the dominant bully position, right? And people are expecting this for sure. And this is dangerous. This is dangerous. Even as Xi and Putin were forming this partnership to demonstrate, and show against the world, the Western world, there were still limits to what they're willing to kind of do together. But we weren't. Russia had been a pretty leery, right? Before they didn't have an issue with this, but Russia had already been not too eager to become dependent on anyone, especially China. So as this partnership was forming and these opportunities and these Chinese investments were coming, Arctic LNG 1 and 2, there were a lot of people in the Kremlin and Russia in general, like, where does this end? Because this looks like it's going to go result in a lot of dependency on China. And we don't like that. So that was well known. Well, that just got accelerated. And now we're all watching and things have changed clearly. China is in such a strong position to take such advantage of this in Russia that could actually get pretty dangerous. And we know that China has a very strong objective of gaining access and influence to governance in the Arctic, and they've been trying for years to achieve that. This might be an opportunity for them to pursue that now with more effectiveness. So these are concerning circumstances. We'll see how that works, but yeah, and that's a big deal to the United States too, because we're about to do a complete government shift to China as the number one threat to Arctic or U.S. national security priorities. So this is all going to really accelerate quickly here soon.